Hi, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Lumiere Startup Saturday. Our guest today is Aishwarya Malhi. She's the co founder of Rebalance, an angel investment network, a community, and an accelerator. So, Aishwarya, thank you so much. And I think I'm also very privileged to talk to one of the youngest founders in this space. I don't think there's something like this that exists in the world, does it?
Yeah, I think I launched this in when I was 24, so probably one of the youngest female founders of an accelerator. Yes.
So
Thank you.
Aishwarya, why this space? I mean, how did how does this space talk to you? What is it that excites you about startups?
Yeah, so I'll maybe share a little bit about what I was doing prior Rebalance and also what we're really building, and so that would maybe give a segue into how why exactly did we want to sort of build in this space. So Vikas and I co-founded Rebalance in 2019, and I think sometime around March. And how we actually met was Vikas is a techie from Bihar, Patna, and I was sort of raised and brought up in like different parts of the world. So initially, grew up in China where my parents were based and then moved to India for my education. And I've always been interested in the functional aspect of tech. So even though I didn't study tech as like a as a career path, I was always fascinated with this entire machine learning and AI bit, and not saying it just because for the heck of it, but because I actually joined a machine learning company right after my undergrad in Singapore. At that time in 2016, not a lot of people were really talking about that space as actively. But if, just to give a ballpark, if people have heard about the company called Emotion, which got acquired by Apple in 2018, what we were building was very similar to Emotion, probably the only companies from Asia who were doing this. And so when I was offshoring for tech talent in India for my team back in Singapore, is when I actually met Vikas. So one of my, school seniors actually tagged Vikas on, the post that I had put out, and that's how we ended up meeting. And I think sometimes you just know that there are two people who are extremely passionate about the same thing, and things just sort of fall into place really really easily. So I think that's ideally what happened with us. Vikas was running something called hersaga.com, which was sort of like a media platform where he was publishing the stories of women entrepreneurs from across the world, and sort of creating role models, I guess, for people who would like to maybe perhaps start a company someday. And so that really connected with me. I had my own fair share of experiences from Info when I was part of the fundraising process, seeing that 0 to 1 journey, since I was the first hire in that team for the two co-founders, and later became the managing director along with them. And we had a entire team under us before I left the company. So for us, I think this entire piece of diversity was extremely close to our hearts. And for me, ideally, I've been raised by a set of really strong women. So when I moved from China to India, I was with my grandmom for about 4 to 5 years. And then I stayed with my mom's sister for about 8 years. So I've had like a really diverse set of experiences in terms of parenting as well. I guess when you look in hindsight, it really, speaks to you. So I think that piece plus, I had, like I was saying, the experiences while fundraising as a young girl who probably was not a techie but talking about a machine learning product can sometimes be a really interesting conversation to have in rooms where there are not a lot of women. So I think that's a piece that was really really important to me. And when Vikas and I started chatting about it, we realized that it's not just us, but a lot of people in the ecosystem feel that that there is not enough diversity on both sides of the table, and for the same kind of effort and the same kind of products or services that people are selling, women are raising a lot women are raising a lot less money compared to men for the same kind of ideas. So I think that was our sort of like a critical point where we decided that the best way to put this entire thing together is to work on both sides, which is making a goal of getting women as both allocators and recipients of capital. And
Hmm.
so we started talking about building Rebalance in 2017, and 2019 when we launched it as an accelerator program that focuses on companies that are led by women and diverse people. And the angel community is the medium through which we invest in the companies that come to the batch and even otherwise. The angel community today, as of 2024, is India's first angel community that is 60% women investors as well. So that's like a quick background of how it happened, who we are, and also what really pushed us to start Rebalance together.
Amazing. And how do you find uh, these startups? What is your point of view on the sectors? Is there some, inbuilt uh, do's and don'ts of what you're more attracted to versus what is it that you will really go after? You said tech, so does that become a big part of what you're doing?
Absolutely. So, the criteria ideally for the accelerator program is threefold. Just the general criteria, just to be eligible to apply. One is that you have to have at least one female or a diverse person as a founder, an active operating founder, not someone who's just a director in the company but has no role to play, because we get lots of those as well. The second one is where we look at companies that have at least their MVPs ready. So because we invest checks of up to 150,000 USD to 200,000 USD, which is around pre-seed, seed is the stage we like to play in. That's the first check or the second check. Um, we do like to work with companies that have at least their MVP in place, which means that if you're like a consumer app, then you have to have a minimum set of users. Or if you're building a D2C brand, you have to have some early revenue and traction. So we don't take companies at idea stage, except for maybe some sectors like biotech or hardware or deep tech healthcare, where the gestation period is a little bit longer to hit, the MVP stage. There we do make exceptions, and we have taken companies that are falling in these sectors as early as pre-product, but we do prefer companies with an MVP that is ready. And the third one is, of course, that we work with companies that have that are tech enabled. So majority of our investments are actually, all of them are either coincidentally actually deep tech or tech. We've done very little consumer. We are of course open to it, but that's just how our portfolio has been so far. We've invested in about 25 startups through the Rebalance Angel Community, and in terms of sector, we're sector agnostic. We've done the breadth, the breadth of as large as, from a D2C brand all the way up to someone who is building India's first green hydrogen air propulsion engine systems, to companies that are in climate falling under SaaS, and companies that are falling again under the same mission, focusing on material sciences. So basically, how industrial biotech can be leveraged to improve, elements within the supply chain that are actually harmful to the environment as well. So we've done quite a wide variety of sectors and are open to all.
Amazing. Any though when you talk to women, there must be women founders. They must have also had a few other experiences where they probably looked for funding and then they become part of your cohort. So, what is it that you see in terms of the shifts in the way they start to tell their story? How do you help them build the brand? And what are the kind of uh, other than funds, what do they receive from you in the
So I think this is actually a really deep question, and I can actually talk about it for a long, long time, but I'm going to make it very brief. I feel that, the best way to figure out how you're really helping a founder in their journey is actually to see what kind of feedback you're getting. So we do this piece where after all the batches, we actually take feedback from each founder. And the one thing that resonated, of course, funds aside, that resonated with every team and every founder was that this was the only place where they didn't feel lonely. And that's an extremely intangible, hard to achieve thing, which we didn't realize was how the founders were actually feeling in the community, because it is a very lonely journey to start up, whether you're a female or not a female. And I think that piece is something that really made us very happy, I guess, because if you're able to make the journey of building something new just a little bit easier, I think you're doing a really good job in helping the founders, because I think what you really need at pre-seed seed is your early believers and sounding boards more than anything else, because most of the times the product, technical aspects and all those pieces get sorted, because we will connect you to the right mentors within the industry, whether it's tech, product, marketing, sales, building a roadmap. But I think really intangible things like direction and clarity, these are few things that a lot of people don't focus on in the early days, and that really helps. So your shipping time, if you're building like a SaaS product, how fast are you shipping new iterations of the product? So that speed of execution and these kind of small things are what we try to sort of work with the founder on, which is give them the confidence that they need and the resources that they need to really go and execute what they really want to build out, and then worry about maybe fundraising as the last thing that they have on mind. So I think for us as a program, while we focus on a lot of aspects, from A to Z, but I think these three or four key pieces, which is direction, clarity, and having sounding boards that you can call at even 3 a.m. to chat and discuss what your problems are, is what probably makes it a lot more different from other accelerator programs. So I think for women specifically, to answer your question, for women specifically, I think we tend to not we tend to be very realistic about what we can achieve. But in startups, the intention is to show the vision and how big it can be. So when we pushed a lot of the ladies and girls to think of their goals, whether it was fundraising goals or how large the company can become or what revenue can they then target in the next 18 to 24 months, to think big, right? And when that happened, you could see a shift in the kind of confidence in the conversations that they were having. So I think for us, that piece is something that we try to focus on a lot more, which is to help women think a little bit bigger than they are. Yeah.
Amazing. So your cohort size and how each of these cohorts have been different and how the accelerator program has evolved over the years. Maybe you want to just touch upon that, Aishwarya?
Sure, absolutely. So, since 2019, we've done about 7 cohorts. We are open for applications for the eighth cohort now, and about 56 to 58 companies have gone through our batches. We do 2 batches a year, and in each batch, we don't take more than 15 companies, or perhaps actually our the quantum of startups in each cohort average has been between 8 to 10, to be really honest about it. We're quite selective about the startups that we take, and in total about $40 million of funding has been moved through pre-seed seed, and this is basically the total sum that the companies that got funded from the batch have raised during the batch and in follow-on funding as Rebalance alumni founders. Like I said, we invest up to 150K to 200K USD. We've done about 25 investments so far, and we are now seeing lots of our companies this year actually go for their pre-series A, which is really great. And we, I think, have about 180 VC partners, family offices that work with us on this mission as well. So this is just like a community that we built out called Diverse Investors League, which is signaling to the ecosystem that we're looking to diversify our inbound deal flow, so that later on nobody can say that, oh, we don't have a gender balanced portfolio because we don't have enough deal flow that is diverse, right? So that was the goal for building that out, and it's a global community. We have funds from Europe, US, India, and Singapore that are part of it, and will probably grow as we also go along the years.
And also UK. Tell us about your late that you did.
Yes, absolutely.
How did that go?
So this was actually a really fun sort of experiment that we wanted to do. So we run something called Ask Me Anything with Me on angel investing, and this is specifically for women because because we're India's first angel community that's 60% female, it was hard to hit that number. So we wanted to make sure for us as we grow as a network also, and eventually when we do also roll it into a fund, we want enough women LPs as well. So for us to make that impact, we have to start talking about it today. If women today start talking about angel investing, at least learning about it, then will they ever think about being LPs, right? So that was our longer sort of vision with it. And the AMAs on angel investing did phenomenally well in India. We did Delhi, Bombay, and we're going to do probably more cities in India as well. But because I was in London, I thought, why not also host one here? And it ended up actually getting a supremely great response over there in London as well. And we hosted about 15 ladies for this chat on angel investing. And on average, out of these AMAs, we get about 30% to 40% sign-ups as well. So even though the goal is not intended to be part of Rebalance Angel Community, that's something that we leave open to the people. But the intention is to build conversation around, just a general chat, limited seating of maybe 10 to 15 ladies to just talk about any questions that they have around angel investing. So that's a little bit about what I was actually doing in the UK as well.
So, for you, is there any particular sector and a particular uh, founder and any story that you want to just talk about, uh, a mention or anything which
Mhm.
stays with you as
Yeah.
impact that Rebalance has had on their journey as a startup?
I think there are many, and it makes us very happy in hindsight because you can only see the result of what you're doing maybe a year or 2 years down the line. But I'll share maybe a story about one of the founders who was part of batch five. And so, how people talk about, founder market fit, and, if I'm building a biotech company, I have to, have some founder who's a scientist and all of that. But if you look at like all of the largest companies in the world, a lot of the best founders were like quite unconventional. And over the years, we've realized that at pre-seed seed as well, the most important bit is to identify the the most talented or the best founders or unconventional founders in the space, rather than focus on the just the idea or just the market that they're in, right? And so one of the founders who came to us was building something in the climate tech space. It was a biotech company focusing on bioplastics. And this is a space that generally climate is a space that we're passionate about. But the founder didn't come with, say, for example, she wasn't someone who was a scientist or an experimentation person. Those experts that you look for who are working on something so specific. But the depth of knowledge that she had about the product just blew our mind. Like, you could not tell that she was not from the industry. And initially, not a lot of folks were willing to maybe invest in that company because they were like, oh, subject matter expert is missing in X and Y. And like, she came with us alone. She didn't have a team, nothing. And we said that no, we will back this founder because we could see what she could probably do, right? And I think through that, it was also like a very uh, like it was a moment where we also realized that it's so important sometimes to have those early believers. And she, after we funded the startup, now has been able to attract some of the best people from the largest companies like Biocon to come and join her, right? So the ability for a founder to build a team is also extremely important. You could be the smartest person, but if you're unable to get a team together, the intention of building that company essentially just sort of fizzles out, right? So for us, I think that's one story where we feel that sometimes you don't get the right support at the right time because you don't fit the conventional like sort of notion of what that founder should be like if they're in XYZ industry. But this was a complete like how to say, like a complete bet on somebody who was not from the space. But then I think eventually proved us right. So I think we're very happy about that. But I think we need a lot more people to start who take risk on people, because you can't have a playbook that is to the T for every kind of investment that you make. So I think in the space of VC investing or even angel investing, it's all about the people and whether you think they have the capability to build what they're talking about, and do they have that perseverance to actually build that. So when the founder that I'm talking about, when she came to us, she said that this is what I want to dedicate my life to, and that kind of strength doesn't come that easily. So I think we saw a lot of these intangible character traits and things, and also the depth of her knowledge, despite not being from the industry, that really pushed us to take that bet. So I think this is one that's really close to my heart. Yeah.
And when you first started your accelerator to now your eighth accelerator, has the format changed? Have the mentor, have the way in which you work with the founders, has that changed? And how do they find you also?
Absolutely. So I think for in terms of, maybe to answer your question on the format, right? So if you think about it, 2019 we launched. We were actually a complete in-person program.
Hmm.
Is that this was pre like 2020. So when COVID-19 happened, that was when we had just started batch two, and the whole world went into lockdown. And that was quite a challenging time, I guess, for everybody and also for us. So we went completely virtual, and since then we've never come back. So right now we're a semi-virtual program where it's a 15-week long journey that you take with us, from the orientation until a demo day where about 100 to 115 investors come and listen to your pitch. We have a 3-day boot camp that is in person during the latter half of the program, which is around week 8, week 9, where we actually host all of the startups from across India to come and be with us in Gurgaon. And we actually host in-person sessions with a lot of the speakers and mentors that we have. So of course our mentor pool also, we actually curate it basis every batch and the kind of sector. So we have a very large pool of folks who dedicate their time pro bono and work with us. But we do pick and choose which ones would be the best fit basis if we have a lot of SaaS companies or a lot of um, maybe a B2B versus a B2B sort of weightage, and then accordingly we curate the
Mhm.
mentors. So I think in terms of that, semi-virtual, but with a 3-day in-person bootcamp. Even our demo day is actually virtual. It's over Zoom, because we're able to get a lot more investors from across India and the world to join us, rather than keeping like a physical event where then a lot of people don't travel anymore for demo days as well. So I think, yeah, that's ideally how we're sort of operating right now.
And when your own startup, when Rebalance as your startup, when you think of as a founder of a startup as
Yeah.
part of this enabling ecosystem,
Yeah.
how have your thoughts on startups changed? What do you see as like the must-haves for a successful startup? Maybe we could have this as the last question.
Absolutely. I think that's a really lovely question. I feel that the best part of being on the investing side is that we get to meet some really amazing people, and we get to learn so much. I think not a lot of investors talk about this, but the conversations that we have are all learning experiences. Like if 5 years ago somebody asked me, how exactly, what's the difference between a microbial bioplastic and like a plant-based bioplastic, I would not know. But like today, because I've had the privilege of actually working and speaking with so many amazing people, I have that. I think so from a as a founder of Rebalance, I think that excites me the most and keeps me motivated despite anything to actually get up every day and do this. But looking at so many founders across so many cohorts, I've realized that the only thing that really matters in the best founders and the ones that maybe are not able to see the company through beyond 5 or 10 years is perseverance. And it might be cliche, but it's actually true. Your ability to handle pressure is extremely important, because when you're building a startup, whether it's venture funded or not, it doesn't matter. If you're building your own company itself, you don't have anyone to fall back on. You will have daily fires and long term issues that you'll be dealing with every day. So I think the ability to handle pressure is probably the number one thing I would say, is something that you have to be prepared for. And the second thing is, don't hesitate to ask for help, because there are more than enough people who would guide you, help you, and you should be as shameless as you can about reaching out to people, because a lot of our early building that me and Vikas did, we messaged people on LinkedIn, we reached out to people on email, people that we admired, right? Saying that we'd love for you to come and be part of the mentor community at the accelerator. And so many people that we met also came through LinkedIn. So I think you have to be a complete go-getter, and some of the best founders that we see do a lot more with as less resources. So I think your ability to be able to do things despite not having enough resources is what makes you a founder. So I think these will probably be the three big things that I think I've seen across all of these batches in the companies that have done phenomenally well.
In your, and this, I know I said this was the last question, but I'm very curious about well-being. So
Yeah.
in your accelerator, is there anything that helps founders
Yes.
understand, and since you've got the term word balance in your name,
Yeah.
find that balance? And what do you actively do to inculcate that?
Absolutely. So I think this is if you actually go and read up, even on our website we talk about this. I feel that this is something that cannot be solved for through sessions or like all of these things, but it's actually the environment that you create for the founders when they're building their company early on, right? Because you get a lot of rejections. Some of the best companies that are billion-dollar companies in the world today have got more, and on average, 100 plus investor rejections before they actually got their first check. So I think for us, what we focus a lot on is to create a supportive environment. Whether it is new system with which we have also picked all of our mentors. If you see, the communication across all of the stakeholders that we interact with will be somewhat uniform, because I think if you have value very very clear as an organization, you're able to then inculcate it across all channels and have the same kind of focus on all sorts of, like, all sides of the table. So the founder has a very uniform across all of our interactions, whether it's us, whether it's our mentors, whether it's the sessions. And then it just creates an environment of absolute encouragement and supportiveness, along with, of course, a little bit more of reality checks that are also here, sort of needed here and there. But I think mental health is a very big part of what we cover. We do have, like a session that we also host usually in the batches around that. We also have somebody who's on board who founders can block time with and chat about anything that they want. And these are all private conversations that even me and Vikas aren't part of. So they can reach out to her, have a chat, and talk about whatever's bothering them, whether it's a co-founder, sort of mismatch, or it is a something in terms of feeling heavily rejected because not a lot of investors are able to understand what they're solving for. So sometimes I think it's good to have a complete non-startup person actually just there to listen to you. So we do have that also as part of the program.
Aishwarya, it's phenomenal what you've done and what you've built with Rebalance.
Um,
Wish you and Vikas and the cohort of founders that you support and the community of all the very best. And
Thank
we'll
you.
be watching and hopefully have another conversation and even meet in person if possible.
Absolutely, I'd love to catch up with you, and thank you so much for taking out the time to actually share our story and be such a gracious host. Thank you.
Thank you, Aishwarya.
All right.